Hey, how's it going? So today we're going to talk about the physical evaluation board and how the physical evaluation board um, differs from the medical evaluation board and how they came to their decisions that they came to. So, recap of the last few days. We started off with me needing to ask the Navy for help. I went to the Navy, I asked them for help. They agreed that I probably had some issues as they related to my combat service in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so that was approved. And then they sent me before the medical evaluation board, where a set of doctors evaluated me, determined that I had severe PTSD, and they determined that I needed to be retired from the Navy because I had severe post traumatic stress disorder. So what happens after that happens is the doctors then forward that on to the next part of this 7 series story, and they send it to the physical evaluation board. Now, the physical evaluation board is a little different than the medical evaluation board. So there at the medical evaluation board, it's all doctors. There's no outside influence of any sort. It's all medical evaluations. It's all medical based on medical judgments, and it's probably the most fair process that you can go through because these are the professionals that are trained in your field to do this. So the next step is to go before the informal physical evaluation board. And so my informal physical evaluation board happened on the 6th of December 2015. And the informal board found me to be fit for duty, citing citing he is not currently required medications for for his conditions. And I fought that because that was untrue. While in the scope of things, it was true. I wasn't on a medication of pills. I wasn't on a medication of a daily routine. I was, however, undergoing what they call stellate ganglion block. I've talked about it a little bit. It's where they take the needle and they put it in my throat right outside a cluster of nerve cells, and they put lidocaine there. And that lidocaine stops a lot of the I don't know how to explain it because I'm not a doctor, but it stops a lot of the thoughts and the nightmares and the recurring flashbacks and stuff. So the physical evaluation board didn't look at that. No, there were two people that were on the board for that, and it was a commander in the Navy, and they don't tell me what their name is, but my guess is that it's the same doctor that was in my next step at the physical board. And then there's just a regular captain, a non-medical doctor captain. And so they come back and they're just very clear in what they state. They state the member has been diagnosed with PTSD and depressive disorder. Although the member does experience symptoms related to these conditions, he is not currently required medications for his conditions, and he has no history of hospitalizations. Furthermore, his command indicates that he has good potential for continued service, and both his CO and co-workers, who are retired flag officers, and they mean admirals, endorse his retention. Therefore, he is in the opinion of the board that the preponderance of evidence at this time indicates that the member is fit for continued naval service. And then it goes on and that was from the medical officer. So that's what the medical officer decided. No idea who this medical officer is. Actually, I apologize. It's right here. It's just a commander, and it doesn't say what kind of medical doctor it is. And so then the presiding officer says that deployability, inability to perform the duty of his or her office, grade, rank, or rating in every geographic location and under every conceivable circumstance will not be the sole basis for a finding of unfitness. So basically, what he just said there is that even though I am not able to go work on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, get on a fire team on an air station, work with an airfield of any sort, that is not the sole findings that allow them to make a decision of whether or not I can continue to do my job. So he doesn't necessarily say he agrees or doesn't agree with this person, but he says that even though I cannot do my duties as an aviation bosun mate, he still can't make his decision because maybe there's something else I could do. That's what he said. And then he goes in to talk about the physical fitness testing. And it says, inability to take or pass the PRT, PFT will not be the sole basis for a finding of unable to continue naval service. So what he's saying is that even though in the last round in the medical evaluation board, where they talk about how my issue is a roller coaster effect and causes me to have massive weight gain and loss, and if anyone's been friends with me long enough knows that I can lose weight, I can gain weight. It depends on how I'm feeling and what I'm going on. He says that even though medical findings state that I cannot meet that, it does not require an unfitness for further service in the United States Navy. So they basically took, the medical officer basically took the MEB, the medical evaluation board, with the psychiatrist and the psychologist and the neurologist and all that, and basically just said, F you. Told all of those doctors at Walter Reed, no, you're wrong. This isn't true because he's not on medication and people like him. I'm not making that up. It says right here. It says right there. The member has been diagnosed with these things, and although the member does experience these symptoms related to these conditions, basically, and so that's where it is. And then basically she says, his command likes him. And then this is where he says, the inability to do my job does not lead to an automatic determination that I can or cannot be in the Navy, and then goes on to talk about how just because I can't maintain weight standards doesn't mean that I can or can't be in the Navy. So I'm confused at this point because how can you continue to be in the United States Navy and be expected to advance as a certain job in the Navy? So in my case, an aviation bosun mate handler, second class petty officer. How am I supposed to make E6 if I'm not able to continue learning how to do my job hands-on? Some people will tell you that I have to learn it in a book and take a test, and then I'll pass it that way. But that's not how I learn, and that's not how I made E5 in 5 years, right? Or 6 years. That's not how I made E5 in 6 years. I learn by hands-on. I've learned every bit of my job as an aviation bosun mate by doing the job. I studied a little bit. I learned a little bit in studying and stuff like that. Maybe I'm a little bit better at doing that today, but that's not how I learned my job. And how am I expected to continue to serve honorably when the Navy isn't going to allow me to do that because I can't meet weight standards? So what I will tell you is, after this happened, the weight issue became an issue with the Navy. So the board found this was the case, and I got a call from my command the next day, and they said, you have to come in to drill and weigh in and because the Navy says there's nothing wrong with you. So I did. So I came in, stepped on a scale, and it clocked out at 235 pounds. The Navy says that for me to be within weight standards, I must maintain a weight of 186 pounds. In 2015, I was 32 years old. I think that's right. I was 32 years old. I'm not losing weight that quick. I tried. So I go in, and for the first time in my naval career, I fail my way in. I fail weight standards in the United States Navy for the first time in my career. Been out of standards for a couple years now, but a lot of it was being excused because of my medical conditions. So I go in, and I get my first altercation with the Navy because now they're accusing me of just being fat and lazy. Because there's nothing wrong with me. Because the board says there was nothing wrong with me. So I kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. It really started to make me angry. I really disagreed with this decision. And this is when I realized that this was going to be an uphill battle. So the Navy gives me an opportunity to appeal everything. So I appealed it. And I basically appealed it on the facts of that I disagreed with the fact that that medication, that I was on medication. I explained to them that I was actually on Prozac for nightmares. I informed them of the stellate ganglion block that I was starting. I informed them of the fact that I was still on trazodone at the time. All of this was in my medical record. How they didn't see any of this, I don't know. And I started to bring attention to the fact that I was also on propranolol, and propranolol is known to cause weight gain, along with a couple of these other things. So then I go on to talk about what it means to be fit for duty as a naval aviation bosun mate handler, and basically I talk about how I don't even meet SecNav requirements for NATOPS to be qualified to do the job that they're expecting me to do. I talked to them about the fact that in 5 years, even though they claim that my command says that I'm a stellar employee, that for 5 years, my command failed to give me a fitness report. They failed to give me an evaluation. There was 5 years of no evaluation of any sort whatsoever. And it was only until I started this process that any paperwork had even been initiated to do that. I talk about how I'm honored to serve in the United States Navy, but I fear for my life because of the fact that I've lost so many friends to suicide that tried to fight their disabilities to stay in the Navy and only hid their pain, and then it ultimately led to them taking their own lives. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a statistic for the Navy. I talk about serving honorably for 14 years. I talk about being exposed to things in Iraq and Afghanistan that I never expected to. I spoke about my dreams of becoming a chief and how even though I would love nothing more than to become a chief petty officer in the United States Navy, I wouldn't be a good candidate to be a chief at that time. It would be a disgrace to my shipmates, because I believe in the fact that you shouldn't be overweight to be in the Navy. I'm very strict about that. And so how can I expect the United States Navy to make a waiver for me to allow me to be in uniform where I'm very much overweight because of my issues? And I don't think that's right. I think that when we look at our military force, we must look at a physically fit, mentally strong fleet. We need that. We need our sailors to be physically fit and mentally strong. And I'm not that sailor anymore. I'm not physically fit anymore. I was. I can show you pictures all day long where I used to be. And I'm not mentally strong anymore. There was a time when I was, but the mere fact that I can't even go several weeks without having awful fights with my wife over something so stupid as what the hell's for dinner? That's not the sailor. That's not the sailor that I want working in any environment in the United States military. I served my country honorably, Navy. I did my job. I did what you asked me to do. And I went above and beyond to do it. I volunteered to go to Iraq. I volunteered to go to Afghanistan. I did those things. I asked the board to take a look into my time in service. I talk about guarding detainees in Iraq and Afghanistan. I talk about the formation of ISIS. I talk about how we guarded death row detainees. Talk about how I watched my shipmates and I get assaulted with human cocktails. I tell you what, there's nothing more dehuman. Like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, there's nothing more mentally draining than not feeling like a human being. And I'll tell you what makes you feel like not being a human being is when other human beings throw their human feces on you. I spent more time changing out my uniforms in supply because I had poop on me or piss on me or someone spit all over me, right? And why? Because I didn't give them a freaking juice box, because I didn't give them a special meal, because I didn't give them a pack of cigarettes on time. And I had to deal with that. I did that for two tours of duty. The second tour of duty, I went above that. I became a sergeant of the guard. I became a guard force commander. I was selected to go to the office of the control, and I started off as a cell. I started off as like a worker bee, and then I was promoted to sergeant of the compound, and then I was ultimately advanced to battle captain. And during that time, I wasn't dealing with the detainees directly, but I was dealing directly with the guard force, and those guys would be assaulted and rioted on, and they would want to punish detainees, and a lot of times we couldn't punish the detainees because they would give up vital information, and so it would look like we were detainee lovers. That's what they would call us a lot of times, and I got shit on a lot for that. I mean, the guys and the girls, they didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that, we would seem like we were more lenient towards the detainees than we were the service members. And so that didn't go over too well. I didn't have a lot of friends in Afghanistan. People didn't really want to talk to me and my shipmate too much because of that. Also, when we did the intake, you'd have to look before we would send our report every morning to the Pentagon. You'd have to make sure that everything was there. So if you got a new detainee in, you would have to review the case file. You would have to see the death and carnage that was caused. You would have to see the tools that they used to do it. And then you would have to go interact with these detainees and be nice to them and give them juice boxes. And that they've just killed like 22 Marines or whatever. And it was rough. It really took a toll on me. I talked in my letter a lot about how I just talk a lot about how I talk about living next to burn pits and how ever since I've been home I struggle a lot with pneumonia a lot. I struggle a lot with other issues. We talk about my tour of duty in Afghanistan a little bit, and then we go on and we talk about how I come home and how I come home and I'm not able to adapt back into civilian society right away, right? So what happens? I come home and I'm trying to go to college, and it took me like 4 years to get my associate's degree. I'm drinking a lot. I can't get off of the bar stool. Spending more time like drunk than I am like sober. So it was like wake up, go to work, go to school, go to the bar, black out, wake up, go to school, go to work, go to the bar, black out, And it was like a never-ending process. So finally, whenever I wanted to try to kill myself, I talk about how I've lost all of my friends. I've been losing at that point, I've lost 14 friends to suicide from these deployments. And then we go, then I start talking about how that's breaking me down mentally. So then I wanted to commit suicide. And I go to the Navy and I tell the Navy I'm going to commit suicide. And this was before all this started. And the Navy basically just hands me the keys to my car and they go home. Okay. So I went home, went to the American Legion, grabbed a bottle of booze, started drinking it, told the commander I'd see him when we got to hell. And he realized something was wrong with me. And he helped me that night before I did get an opportunity to go kill myself. I talk in my letter about how I experience chronic nightmares, irritability, flashbacks, hypervigilance, anxiety, startle responses, depression. I talk about PTSD, nightmares, flashbacks. I talk about the different medications that I've been on. I talk about how I'm starting these other things, and I talk about the fact that I've gained and lost over 65 pounds during the course of this time. So that was my dispute back to the Navy. If you haven't figured out already, that's just my account to the Navy. So I sent that off to them on the 7th of January. So just like a couple weeks after I got my decision, about a week later, I sent an appeal to the to the board, the physical evaluation board, asking for a formal board. And a formal board is whenever I go to Navy Yard and I sit in front of a board of officers and I'm able to tell my case and allow them to get more information on what happened. So tomorrow we will talk about the formal physical evaluation board. And if you haven't figured out already, it didn't go very well in my favor. So I really appreciate everyone who's been joining in and following this and helping me. And like I said, after we tell the story, I'm probably going to start doing a little bit more and looking to see how I can raise some money for some funds, because it's going to cost me $20,000 to sue the Navy. And that's a lot of money. And I just don't really have it. And but I think that it's important that I do this, not just for me, but for other service members that are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder. The United States Navy is doing this for a reason. And the reason is basically that medical retirement funds come directly out of operation funds. And so if they open the floodgates to allow service members who are injured in combat with post-traumatic stress disorder, then they lose money for bullets and ships and tanks and trucks and all this other shit, right? Well, you know what? That's not my problem. That's not my problem. That's their problem, and they need to go address that with the United States Congress. That's Congress's problem. Congress sent us to these wars, and Congress needs to pay for us when we come home. And they're right. Go to the VA. I got 100% disability over there, but I'm still on contract with the Navy. And remember, the Navy still says that I can serve and finish my 20-year career, but they have no intention of allowing me to do that. And we know that because the 2 times that they found me fit for duty and dispute my disabilities, the Navy tried to kick me out both times. And we'll talk more about what happened the next time in the next round, because that's when it gets really personal with me. But so I really appreciate you joining in. Please share this video for others to read. If there's other veterans out there that are struggling or had struggled with the same issue, I hope that I can help. I hope that me fighting this will help them just a little bit. The Navy, I love the Navy. I love everything about the Navy. I love being an aviation bosun mate, and I will do anything in the world to support my shipmates that are still in the Navy. But my fight is against the bureaucrats that put this whole thing together. My fight is with the career officers who think that they know more than they do. And my fight has nothing to do with my shipmates. It has nothing to do with most leaders in the Navy. My only issue with the leaders in the Navy now that listen to this story and have seen this story and they agree with this story that I was wrongly I have a huge injustice done to me by the Navy. It really bothers me that they're not willing to step up and speak out about it, because shipmates, if this happened to me, I can probably find you several thousand others that this has happened to as well. The VA is full of them, and there is better benefits for being medically retired. It's just a little bit. It's a little bit better. And to be honest, I'm an E5, but whenever I'm injured, and so like the Navy's probably looking at maybe like $250 a month for the rest of my life. Literally. I'm not an officer. I'm not a chief. I'm not a mass chief. I'm not, nothing. I'm not a warrant officer. None of that. I'm an E5, right? Enlisted 5. That's it. That's what I am. We're $250 a month for the rest of my life, and some TRICARE benefits. So, that's all for today. Be back on tomorrow. Like I said, I'm trying to keep these about as brief as possible, but it's a lot of information on the website for you to look at. A lot of supporting documents here. I've got it all. There's not a document missing on this page. Everything except for my medical record. I didn't put my medical record up here, but like all of the supporting documents that basically took my medical record and gave an evaluation of it, it's all here. The only thing you won't find on this page is my social security number and my birthday. But you can find it all right here. And if you want to know my birthday, it's on my Facebook page. I don't even know why I took that off. But anyway, it's all here. I'm just trying to give it to you as quickly as possible. But the Navy's wrong, and they don't get to choose what evidence that they want to look at, and that's what they've done. So step one, the physical evaluation board. This is where the Navy starts treating me like I'm a piece of trash. So, and they start disagreeing with my service. So, thanks a lot. I'll see you all about the fleet.